Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean, and let's just cut to the chase. There are a ton of cups throughout Mario Kart's history. Originally, I was planning on this video being my top 10 favorite cups throughout the series, but I just could not land on only 10, so now we got 15 to go through. I wanted to go ahead and get this out a decent amount of time before we inevitably get a new Mario Kart game. I say as I crawl into the fetal position, please Nintendo, I'm begging you. Alright, number 15. So to get this top 15 started, we are going straight into the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, which to be honest, at first I wasn't really expecting any of these to land on this list. Most of these cups have at least one boring track in it, which bogs down the overall quality of the cup, but there are a few standouts, starting with the Fruit Cup. The cup begins with Tour Amsterdam Drift, which although the Tour City tracks definitely can get a little bit monotonous, I think that this one has solidified itself as one of the better ones. The music is pretty good, we get to drive through a tulip field, and I do appreciate the vibrant scenery. This then takes us into Riverside Park, which is one of my favorite tracks in the entirety of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Riverside Park went from being a track that I didn't really care for that much in Super Circuit to one of the most jaw-droppingly beautiful tracks in an already gorgeous game. Perhaps my favorite part about this one is the long turn that leads you into tricking through a waterfall. It's just so satisfying to do. The third track in the cup is Wii DK Summit, which is one that I already had fond memories of back in Mario Kart Wii. Honestly, I thought that a remake of this one could not possibly match the quality of the original with how fun controlling it was with inside drifting bikes, but lo and behold, they pull it off. This remake looks phenomenal, however it also plays really well too. Specifically, I think that the gap shortcuts are significantly more challenging to pull off consistently, which is good, and also the ending half-pipe area feels much more controlled and balanced. The craziest part is that with all of this that I just said, I think that my favorite track in this cup may be Yoshi's Island. Not only does this incorporate a great deal of lovely references to the Yoshi games, but also the dynamic layout is so much fun to race on. I love how the environment gradually shifts throughout, and the incorporation of the ending shortcut with the floating red platform from the original game is awesome. Overall, I like the variety and track themes in this cup, and we are only getting started with how good these cups are on this list. Now, I may not be the biggest fan of Mario Kart 7 of all time, however I do have to admit that some of the best tracks in the entire series are found in this game. One really good example of this is the Star Cup from this game because, holy shit, this is an all-star lineup of Mario Kart tracks. The cup begins with Piranha Plant Slide, which is still one of the coolest and most genius concepts for a track. This takes you through some Mario-themed sewage pipes, which although gross, it makes for a fun racetrack. This also makes really good use of the brand new underwater mechanic from this game. The second track from this cup is one of my personal favorite tracks from this game as well, Wario's Shipyard. I've seen a lot of people call this track forgettable, and I do not want to be included in that crowd at all. They are missing out. Taking an underwater theme and combining it with a spooky theme is really something that only this track fully does. Neo Bowser City is yet another one that I don't see enough people talking about. Now unfortunately, Mario Kart 8 remade this track and made it better in literally every single way imaginable, but it is still a really fun and creative track here in 7. Giving Bowser his own city that has a melancholic undertone thanks to the rain is really dope. And finally, Nintendo takes us right back to Wii Sports Resort with Maka Woohoo as the cup finale. This one is an interesting case since it's one of 2 Wii Sports Resort themed tracks in this game, and this is definitely the better of the 2. The ending is much more dramatic and memorable, that's the main reason to be honest. Still a really fun track, however to be honest, the other 3 are definitely doing the heavy lifting with bringing us up to number 14. Time to go back in time a little bit to Mario Kart Double Dash and its stellar iteration of the Flower Cup because wow, it's so fire in this game. Now this is also where we really start running into the complication of certain tracks returning in future games and being better in said games. However, I still love playing the cup itself, so I'm just kind of eyeballing how I'm putting the ranking together. The cup begins with Mushroom Bridge, which thankfully the Mario Kart DS version does not overshadow this one at all, so it's still the definitive version of this course. This is without a doubt one of the best traffic themed courses in all of Mario Kart. It looks completely unique visually and still completely holds up. This then takes us into Mario Circuit, which although this is a pretty common archetype for a Mario Kart track, this game does a pretty good job of making it a fun one. It fits the physics of the game basically perfectly and even started some tropes that would return in future circuit tracks. May not be my favorite course of all time, but it does so much right. Daisy Cruiser, it's f***ing Daisy Cruiser, what do you want me to say? Yeah, the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe remake is better than the original in my opinion, but the original is still amazing. This is still one of the best tracks in the entire game with one of the most fun themes of all time. And finally, we got Waluigi Stadium, which although both of the future remakes are better overall to me, I still love the original a lot too. I know some of the math may not be mathing in this ranking, but I'm just going with my guts here. Alright, so if you know me, then you knew that it was inevitable that Mario Kart Wii was going to land itself on this list, and here at number 12 we have the special cup from that game. This is actually a cup that as a kid I didn't really latch onto as well, but nowadays I've really grown to fall in love with this cup. The cup kicks off with Dry Dry Ruins, which I made a whole video dissecting why this track is an underrated gem. Sorry for the shameless plug, by the way. In summary, it's a desert track that actually went with some unique visuals and ideas that aren't really present in any other sand course in the series. This is seen with the indoor temple area and the room with sand slowly filling up throughout the race, just to name a couple examples. As well, the track is filled to the brim with shortcuts and strategies, which always helps the races to be more nuanced. This is then followed by Moonview Highway, which is definitely one of those courses where I think you need to be pretty familiar with the game to really love it. If you are a newer player, I can totally see why you'd hate this. The traffic is more intense here than basically anywhere else in the series. However, the bright nighttime city aesthetic is lovely to look at, and once you understand the patterns of the cars, it becomes pretty exhilarating to zoom around them. The Bowser's Castle in this game could maybe be argued to be overly derivative of Double Dash's BC track, but at the same time I grew up with this one, so it doesn't really bother me. This being another one of the harder tracks in this game makes it extra fun to race on, and of course we still got some more crazy shortcuts to pull off. And finally, the Rainbow Road in this game is maybe the best one in the series. Hard to say since there are some other very strong contenders, but this one is easily up there. This is easily the most crazy one though, and it feels like at its core it understands the essence of what makes Rainbow Road memorable and fun. Once again, this is probably another case where it can potentially alienate newer players, but since I am experienced and this is my own personal rankings, that is a non-issue here. Overall, not my favorite cup from Mario Kart Wii, but this is definitely one of the standouts in the Mario Kart canon. We don't have a ton of retro cups in this video, however one of the few ones is up at number 11, the Leaf Cup from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is a case where literally every one of the courses here plays better in this game than its original iteration. And to be real, I already liked all these tracks originally, so that's really saying something. DS Wario Stadium was already fun, albeit a little bit unmemorable in Mario Kart DS, however here it is one of the best retros from base game 8. I love how they brought in a fun anti-gravity section followed by some underwater action to bring the race a more dramatic finish. Also, drifting around the turns and being able to trick in this game just immediately makes this my definitive version of Wario Stadium. Then we got GC and Sherbet Land, which I get kind of annoyed with the lack of love this gets online. I have always loved this one even in Double Dash, and here we get creative implementation of underwater driving and absolutely jaw-dropping visuals. Seriously, the way they made it so you can drive underwater through the cracks in the ice is so brilliant and allows you to be more creative with how you go about driving around. I can maybe see the argument that this is kind of a basic Mario ice level as a track, but I don't know, it's fun. Then we got 3DS Music Park, which is definitely the most unchanged from the original version, which is Music Park, so that's fine. Aside from the increased graphical fidelity, this is essentially the same experience. Honestly, I just think that this flows really well and is still just as fun to drive on as it was in Mario Kart 7. Finally, N64 Yoshi Valley, which in my Mario Kart 64 video I said that this was my favorite track in that game, which while that isn't the case anymore, this is so easily the best version of this course. Putting the obvious graphical upgrade aside, now the track actually has the balls to tell you what place you're in, which is still crazy that we had a course that didn't do that before. I know some have pointed out how only one of the routes is actually effective, making the whole alternate path gimmick kind of pointless, which yes I agree, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still a really fun track to play on. Alright, time to get back to some fun nitros. We are still in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe though, which isn't really surprising since like half the cups in Mario Kart are in that game. Cheater. The special cup in this game is pretty good. Everybody knows that the special cup is supposed to be the most challenging nitro cup in any given game, so that's really important to keep in mind when grading this, and thankfully that is the case here. We start out with Cloud Top Cruise, which has Super Mario Galaxy music. This has already won me over. Seriously, putting Gusty Garden as a soundtrack for a Mario Kart track should be grounds for a Nobel Peace Prize. As for the course itself, yeah, it's really fun and engaging. I think the Thunderstorm section is a lot of fun, with it forcing you to pay attention to which boost panels are safe to drive over, and the little bouncy pads remind me of Mushroom Gorge a lot. Overall, great track that leads us into my biggest guilty pleasure in the entire Mario Kart franchise. Yeah, most people hate Bone Dry Dunes and it pisses me the f*** off. This track is like the Mario Kart equivalent of sex, I swear. So not only is the music amazing and to this day one of my favorite Mario Kart songs, but there is just something about the way driving on it feels. I know a lot of people probably don't like it as much due to how bumpy it is, but I always kind of vibed with that. Yes, on 200cc that is maybe a slightly different story, but I'm defending this with my whole life right now. I'm trying my hardest. Of course, we have our obligatory Bowser's Castle track up next, which this is a pretty strong one. Not my favorite in the whole series, but the fiery heavy metal music combined with the fun anti-gravity portion definitely works to give it some identity. And over the years I've slightly grown to really appreciate the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 8. Originally I felt like it didn't do enough to implement the insane potential with anti-gravity, as this game's Mario Circuit is crazier in that regard with just some wild shit. But looking at this track objectively, it is definitely a fun challenge, and I really appreciate the space station aesthetic that they went for. Not my favorite Rainbow Road in the series, but it is fun and has its own identity. And now we have yet another special cup, this time hailing from the ruler of mediocrity land, Mario Kart 7. Jokes aside, the special cup from Mario Kart 7 is easily the best cup in that game and still holds strong as one of the best sets of tracks in the entire series. This is also yet another one with a couple really underrated tracks that I don't feel like people really talk enough about. The cup begins with DK Jungle, which while I think it's better in Mario Kart 8, I still really love the way it was designed here, and I will say gliding in this game is better, so this track does have that going for it. Also, being that I've recently become a massive fan of the first two Donkey Kong Country games for the Super Nintendo, I have as a result grown an appreciation for basically anything carrying a Donkey Kong theming now. Rosalina's Ice World is a very underrated gem from this game that I keep going back and forth on whether I prefer the version from this game or 8 Deluxe. They have different styles visually, and I love them both the same in that regard. The track itself has some really unique gameplay components, like this super long and wide turn with a hole in the middle, which is pretty nifty. Then we got Bowser's Castle again, and this one is good. I would say as of right now, this one is a step above Mario Kart 8, however not quite on the same level as a few of the others from the series. I do love how the underwater was incorporated, defying basic logic, and the beginning being split off between the top and bottom route is really cool and unique. However, the real star of the show here is the Rainbow Road, which while I have been a critic of the remake in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I have really grown to embrace the original. I think this is definitely a valid pick for the best Rainbow Road in the series, and it provides a really exhilarating one-lap finish to the cup and really the game as a whole. I mean, we get to drive on the f***ing moon here, what else tops this? Oh, apparently the 8 cups above this. Wow, that was writing. Now this next pick is probably going to be the most outlandish one in this entire video. I love the Mario Kart DS Star Cup. Despite half of this cup having exponentially better iterations in future games, there is just something about the flow of this cup and specific to this game that I remember loving as a kid. I think the nostalgia bug is biting this placement especially hard. I mean, Mario Kart DS was the third game I ever played as a kid, and I remember this always being my favorite cup to play, so this is a very personal pick. The cup begins with DK Pass, which is this game's main forgotten gem in my opinion. I think part of it is that this is very similar to other tracks like DK Summit and Mount Wario in the future, where you drive down a snowy mountain, but I don't know, I just really like this one. I feel like the turns just feel really good to snake around, and it's just one of my personal favorites. Then we got Tick-Tock Clock, which while yes it's better in Mario Kart 8, it is damn near perfection in this game as well. Especially with how awful Tick-Tock Clock as a level was in Super Mario 64, the fact that it was converted to a Mario Kart track with so much finesse is incredible. There is so much to love about the layout and the concepts at play, so it's no surprise it aids this cup fantastically. Perhaps the strangest placement in this cup is Mario Circuit, and to be real, I'm not really sure why Mario Circuit is appearing this late in the game, but whatever, let's just roll with it. This is a decently difficult Mario Circuit with its sharp turns and obstacles, so I guess I can accept this one. The remake in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is unfortunately this design perfected, but I have enough nostalgia with the original to not really let it deter my ranking all too much. And the cup ends with Airship Fortress, which repurposes the concept from the Super Mario Bros. 3 level theme and actually gives the airships a whole new aura to them. Despite Luigi's Mansion being the inherent spooky track from this game, Airship Fortress is low-key kinda scarier in a weird way. This is one of the tracks that people really wish would have come back in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Booster Course DLC, and that is for a very good reason. I think that we start to get to the really strong contenders with number 7, like from here on out there is very little separating these. The Flower Cup in Mario Kart Wii is something else. We begin with Mario Circuit, which I mean, this is one of the better ones. This game already has 2 other Mario circuits in it, so it's a wonder that I actually like racing on this one. But yeah, I think that it gives fun races, it's vibrant and everything, and there's plenty of off-road to utilize. However, don't get me wrong, that is nowhere near the reason I love this cup so much. The next track is Coconut Mall, which depending on the mood I'm in, this may be my favorite track in the entire game. This is easily one of the most genius concepts for any track in the Mario Kart series, and the layout implements so many fun elements. Little things like dodging the parked cars at the end, while potentially frustrating, is really fun and engaging. And neither of the remakes even come close to comparing to how incredible the original was either. Then we got DK Summit, which I'm on the fence about whether whether I prefer this or the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version, and I already talked about that one, so I'm not going to really rag on about this. All that really needs to be mentioned is that it's got fire music and fun shortcuts and everything. Then is Wario's Gold Mine, which is another one of the really creative themes for a track in Mario Kart Wii. I feel like in a way this kind of inspired other future courses like Shy Guy Falls, and in a way I think that this does a whole industrial mining aesthetic best. Yes, the Mario Kart 8 remake is probably better overall, but I still love the original version. Number 6 is the Special Cup from Mario Kart Double Dash, and wow. This is genuinely like a Hall of Fame lineup of Mario Kart tracks. It's kind of absurd. Maybe the only thing that's more absurd is the fact that this isn't even in my top 5. Wario Coliseum, why is this track still not come back, Nintendo? Especially with anti-gravity in Mario Kart 8, this one would have fit so well, but no, I f***ing hate being a Wario Coliseum fan sometimes. Seriously though, taking the stadium concept and applying it to a Coliseum and having the track feel like this enclosed gauntlet just works so well, especially with the Double Dash set of physics. It's a shame that we haven't seen a return yet, but hopefully one day that will change. Hopefully. Dino Dino Jungle is up next, and while not my personal favorite, I know this one is extremely popular, and that's for very good reason. And don't get me wrong, this is still a very great track, I just really suck at it. I always like it when the prehistoric era is referenced like this in cartoony racing games, and this one is no exception. Then we have debatably the series' greatest Bowser's Castle and Rainbow Road, debatably. This right here is the reason this is my favorite Special Cup in the entire Mario Kart franchise. The ending this game has is unreal. So the Bowser's Castle in this game feels like it really set the groundwork for the formula that Bowser's Castle still follows to this day. Whether that be the gigantic Bowser statue or the bridge that brings you into the castle itself, so many staples began with this version of the track. This is then followed by one of the most triumphant Rainbow Roads that we will ever see. This was the first great Rainbow Road in my opinion. All of the ones that came before had their own issues that stopped me from really latching onto them. This one, however, nails the balance between pretty visuals, great music, and fun difficulty. This track is hard, but it doesn't feel unfair. You can absolutely master it with practice. Coming into number 5, we have our final entry from the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course DLC, and this is the only one where I think that all 4 tracks are standouts. The cup begins with a Tour City track, but thankfully it's one of the best ones, that being Athens Dash. This has a completely unique art style compared to the other city tracks, and it is so much fun to drive through. It really gives off the vibe that you are just zipping all over the place, which is one of my favorite feelings to get while playing Mario Kart. Then we got Daisy Cruiser. Oh, Daisy Cruiser. Somehow they perfected perfection. This went from being a classic to being even better. The walls are so vibrant, and the dining room actually has people eating now. Nintendo, no you didn't. Great track that I don't think I really need to defend my stance on that much. Then we got the return of Moonview Highway, and while I complimented this in Mario Kart Wii, this is probably the definitive edition of it. And thankfully they didn't ruin it, since we already saw how they were more than capable of doing that with Toad's Turnpike. But yeah, this one is breathtaking to look at, and it feels like it's more fair to beginners now. And finally, the cup ends off with Squeaky Clean Sprint. Holy shit. This track just has no right being this good. In a similar way to how GBA Rainbow Road takes place in a kid's room and uses that concept to its fullest, this one takes place in a restroom, and it just got way too creative with that concept. This is easily a top 10 track in the entirety of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that is probably lowballing it. We are not done with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe though, as now we go back to base game with the Lightning Cup. Ever since this game first released in 2014, I have been a stark member of the Lightning Club and Mario Kart 8 Defense Committee. I love this one. And also the first 2 courses we have already talked about, so let's lightning round this. No pun intended. TikTok Clock is even prettier and funner than the original, and that is with how amazing it already was. 3DS Piranha Plant Slide is the same thing. This was already great, and it just got even better. I always thought that this one felt like going down a water slide, and that feels even more so the case now. Then we got Grumble Volcano, which it is close between whether this or the original is better, so I will just call it a tie. The track did get a lot prettier, and it is still just as much fun to race around, with the parts of the track breaking apart gimmick. And also, this is a genuinely difficult course to play on regardless of experience, which in my opinion in the Lightning Cup is a good aspect. Then we have what is one of the greatest retro glow-ups of all time, the N64 Rainbow Road transformation. This went from being my least favorite track to play on in all of Mario Kart to one of the most magical experiences. It is crazy how this went from being too long to almost too short. It's actually really funny. But no, I love racing on this one with the visual and music overhaul on top of the track not being absurdly long. We finally get to our top 3, and when I tell you it was so difficult to come up with what order these were gonna go in, I mean it. However, I think I nailed it down, and here's the deal. The Bell Cup from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is like kind of good. Just kind of though. Now we already covered 3DS Neo Bowser City, and unfortunately I think that the reason I like this one more is pretty straightforward, so there isn't a lot to comment on. It looks beautiful here, and I for one actually like the road being slippery. Then we have the retro remake masterpiece itself, GBA Ribbon Road. Now this was already a pretty damn good track in Super Circuit, but now them turning this into a children's room was just such a brilliant concept. It exemplifies the concept from before while incorporating a brand new aspect of the course as well. The layout is way more memorable now too. It genuinely feels like you're just racing on a brand new track in the best way possible. The wavy road part is also just, it's so good. Super Bell Subway keeps the momentum going with a fun take on a Mario Kart subway system. There probably should have been more implementation of rats and other grotesque things for realism, but I guess this had to be wholesome family fun or whatever the f. Seriously though, dodging the subways is actually challenging and fun, and the music is fire, and damn it, these tracks are just too good. And then this leads into Big Blue, which means that this one cup successfully holds 2 of my top 10 Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks in it. Big Blue is one of those Mario Kart 8 tracks that almost doesn't feel like it belongs in this game. It has a lot of unique aspects about it. The floaty physics allowing for crazy shortcuts almost harkens back to the zaniness that was present in Mario Kart Wii. And then there were 2, both of which are Star Cups, specifically from Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I ended up going with Mario Kart Wii Star Cup in second, which is all because of Daisy Circuit. Now I don't dislike Daisy Circuit by any means, it's a really cool take on a basic circuit track, but it's a basic circuit track. With the other 3 masterpieces in this cup, this one is definitely the odd one out. Now you may be wondering if I am singling a track out here and speaking ill on it, why is this cup above all these other cups? Well, let's take a look at the other 3 tracks here. Koopa Cape is another Wii track that I've made a whole video breaking down. Shameless plug. That's for good reason though. This was the first track to really embrace the concept of driving underwater, even if you are not literally underwater. Also using the current to boost you along and then create one of the most genius gameplay systems of dodging the electricity in the water tube is amazing. Thankfully, much like Coconut Mall, the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe remake is nowhere near the quality of the original. And then we have Maple Treeway, as of right now my favorite track in this game and probably my favorite racetrack to play on of all time in any video game. Is it objectively the best one? Probably not, since it's very glitchy and everything. However, thematically it is so much fun to play on, and once you really learn how to control it, it becomes so satisfying. And much like Koopa Cape, this is still the definitive edition of this course. And finally, this cup ends with Grumble Volcano, which I can't really decide which version of this one I prefer, like I already said. Mario Kart 8's iteration looks prettier, but this one has more strategic capabilities like the rock hop and respawn shortcuts. Thankfully, there is no game-breaking glitch on this one though, that would suck. It's fine though, this is one of the most fun Mario Kart tracks of all time, definitely ends this cup on as high of a note as possible. I know I ragged a little bit on Daisy Circuit, which is still a fine track, just maybe a little bit mid of a track to start out this otherwise pristine cup. With all of that being said, none of these cups have anything on Mario Kart 8 Star Cup. This is the closest any Mario Kart Cup has come to absolute perfection. This begins with Sunshine Airport, which in my opinion may be the most creative track in the entire base game. Like, driving on runways and through airplanes never ceases to be so cool. And the crazy part is that in my opinion, it only goes up from here. Dolphin Shoals follows this, and this is so easily the best water themed track in the whole game. I would say it's the best water track of all time, but Koopa Cape exists, so we will hold out on that title. However, it would be close. The music here is probably a top 10 Mario Kart song of all time, thanks in no small part to the killer sax solo in the second half. I like the dynamics of the visuals and how you slowly go from the shallow vibrant waters, the deep section with the eel, and the waterfall turn. Also, the music slowly shifts with each of these sections, which is brilliant. Then comes Electrodrome, which is one of the most unique tracks in the whole series. Putting Mario and friends in a rave setting is something that you wouldn't really think of until it happens, and now I really want a Mario EDM spin-off game. I feel like that'd be kind of funny. Anyway, the track itself is a lot of fun, and it also has one of the best songs in all of Mario Kart to accompany it. Finally, the cup ends with Mount Mario, which in my opinion, alongside Big Blue, is the best one-lap track in the franchise's history. All 3 laps are different from one another, but still are creative and playing with the theming of the course. Whether that is going through an icy cave or going over a dam or a thick forest, everything here is dynamic and fun. And this track nails the ending, almost feeling like we are in an Olympic level ski race or something. This was a very difficult list to come up with, however it was also a ton of fun to reflect on what my favorite courses throughout the series was. For anyone new to the channel, I also did videos ranking all of the tracks in each game one by one, so if that is interesting at all, totally feel free to check that out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and as always, peace out.